I need to tell you what happened last Saturday. I have been sitting with it for 6 days, turning it over, making sure I had the words for it before I pressed record. Because this chapter, is the one where everything I said in the previous videos got tested in real time at my own front door. And I need you to know before I tell you anything else, I passed. Not gracefully, not without feeling things I didn't expect to feel, not without my hands shaking and my voice doing something I had to work to control, but I passed. And Jane and Rory were there, which is the only reason I am telling this story with the level of detail I'm about to give you, because they were witnesses, and because what they did that night is the kind of thing that deserves to be said out loud. Spencer came to my apartment. He brought the ring. It was a Saturday afternoon. Jane had come over in the morning. She does that sometimes now, just shows up with something to eat and the quiet understanding that I might need company without having asked for it. That is Jane. She doesn't wait to be needed. She just arrives. Rory came about an hour later. She had been away for work the previous week, and there was something wound tight in her when she walked in, the way Rory gets when she has been carrying something and hasn't had anywhere to put it yet. I noticed, but I didn't push. With Rory, you wait. She'll get there. The three of us were in the living room. We had music on, something low and easy, the kind of afternoon that feels like recovery. Not healed, just resting. The particular softness of being in a room with people who love you and not having to explain yourself. And then my buzzer went. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked at my phone, no message, no missed call. I pressed the intercom. His voice. "Nini, it's me. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." The room went very quiet. I looked at Jane, I looked at Rory, and something passed between the three of us in that silence that I don't have a precise word for. It was not panic. It was not fear. It was something more like recognition. The moment arriving that we had all known, somewhere underneath everything, was going to arrive. The decision at the intercom. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment, because I think honesty is the whole point of this channel, and this is the moment where honesty is hardest. I felt relief. Not the kind of relief that means you want someone back, a different kind. The relief of something you have been bracing for finally arriving. The relief of, okay, here it is. Here is the thing I have been preparing for without admitting I was preparing for it. I also felt something that I am less comfortable admitting, but that I think is important to say. I felt the pull, that specific devastating pull of a familiar voice through a speaker saying your name the way only one person has ever said it. The pull of 4 years of history and comfort and the life I thought I was building. The pull of the version of the future I had to delete, like a document I'd spent years writing. I felt all of that in about 3 seconds. And then Rory stood up. She didn't ask me what I wanted to do. She didn't look to Jane for guidance. She stood up, walked to where I was standing, put her hand on my arm, and said very quietly, very clearly, "You don't have to let him up. But if you do, we are standing right here. We are not going anywhere." I buzzed him up. In the time it took him to come up the stairs, I did something I didn't plan to do. I looked around my apartment. I looked at the bare wall that now has something on it, a print I chose, in a frame I bought myself, hung slightly crooked because I did it alone, and I haven't fixed it yet, and I have decided I love it crooked. I looked at the photography class schedule on the counter. I looked at Jane sitting on my couch with her hands folded in her lap like a woman who has decided to be a mountain. I looked at Rory standing slightly in front of me like she was prepared to be a wall if the situation required it. I looked at all of that, this small, imperfect, genuinely mine life that I have been building in the weeks since everything ended, and I thought, he does not get to come in here and make this feel small. The knock came. I opened the door. Spencer. I have thought about how to describe what it was like to see him, and I keep coming back to this same word, surreal.
Not because he looked different, because he looked exactly the same. Same eyes, same way of standing, same particular expression he gets when he is trying to appear calm and is not calm. And in his hand, a box. Small, dark, the kind of box that only contains one kind of thing. I looked at the box, I looked at him, I did not speak. He said, "I know I don't deserve to be here. I know that, but I needed you to know that I ended it with her completely, weeks ago, and I have spent every day since trying to figure out how to stand in front of you and say what I need to say." I still didn't speak. Behind me, I could feel Jane and Rory. I could not see them, but I could feel them like you feel the presence of people who love you, like something solid at your back, like the knowledge that whatever happens next, you will not fall backwards alone. Spencer's eyes moved past me. He registered Jane. He registered Rory. Something shifted in his expression, not guilt exactly, more like the recalculation of a man who had prepared a speech for an audience of one and was now performing it for three.
He looked back at me. He opened the box. The ring, my ring, the one I had left on the kitchen counter the night everything ended, because I could not bring myself to throw it, and I could not bring myself to keep it, and leaving it on the counter felt like the only honest option. He had kept it. He said, "I am not asking you to forgive me today. I am not asking you to trust me today. I am asking you to let me try, to let me spend however long it takes making this right. Because what we had, what we built, I do not believe that is something you throw away. I do not believe you believe that either." And here's the thing. He was not wrong that I had loved it. He was not wrong that 4 years of a life is not nothing. He was not wrong that some part of me, the part that still remembered his coffee order and the way he laughed at something genuinely funny, unguarded and real, some part of me was standing at that door and feeling the full weight of everything we had been. He was wrong about one thing. He thought that weight was an argument for going back. I have learned that weight is just grief, and grief is not a reason. Grief is just what it costs to have loved something real. I need to stop here and tell you about Jane and Rory, because this is their chapter as much as mine. While Spencer was speaking, while he was standing in my doorway with that box in his hand and that speech prepared, Jane stood up from the couch and walked to stand beside me. Not in front of me, beside me, like she was saying, "Whatever you decide, I am next to you for it." She didn't speak, she didn't look at Spencer, she looked at me, only me, with the kind of steadiness that makes you feel like you could survive anything. Rory was different. Rory looked at Spencer, and I have known Rory for 11 years. I know every version of her face, and the face she had in that moment was one I have only seen a handful of times. Completely still, completely clear, the face of a woman who has made a decision about someone and is not going to be moved from it. She said, and I want to be precise because I have replayed this moment more times than I can count, "Spencer, I'm going to say one thing and then I'm going to let Nini speak. You had a woman who loved you better than most people will ever be loved in their entire lives. You had her loyalty and her attention and her time and her future and her whole heart, and you treated all of that like it was background, like it was furniture, like it would just keep being there no matter what you did. You don't get a second chance at something you didn't appreciate the first time. That's not how this works." Spencer opened his mouth. Rory said, "I'm done," and she stepped back. The silence that followed that was the loudest silence I have ever stood inside. I looked at Spencer for a long time before I spoke, long enough that I think he thought I wasn't going to. And then I said, "I believe that you ended it. I believe you're sorry. I believe you meant some of what you just said, and I believe you have spent weeks convincing yourself that coming here was the right thing to do. But here's what I need you to understand. You coming here with that ring is not for me. It is for you.
It is because you cannot tolerate the version of events where you are the person who destroyed something irreplaceable and did not at least try to get it back. It makes the story more bearable for you. It lets you tell yourself you tried. I am not a chapter in your story about yourself. I am not here to make your guilt more manageable. I have spent the last several weeks looking at my bank account and remembering who I was before I built my life around yours. I have spent those weeks being really honest on this channel, to my friends, and to myself about everything I gave and everything it cost me, and I am not going back. Not because I don't still feel things. I do. I probably will for a long time, but feelings are not a plan, and going back to you is not a future. It is just the most comfortable version of staying exactly where I am, which is broken, and starting over and figuring out who I am without you. I am choosing the harder thing. I am choosing me. Please don't come back. I took the door and I closed it. He stood outside for a minute, maybe two. I know because we could all hear him. None of us moved. Jane had her hand in mine and I didn't remember her taking it, but it was there, and I held it. Then we heard the elevator, and then there was nothing. Rory sat back down on the couch. Jane made tea. She always makes tea. It is her love language, and I am so grateful for it. And I stood in my own hallway, in my own apartment, in this small, imperfect life I am building from scratch, and I felt something I did not expect to feel. I felt proud. Not triumphant, not relieved, not sad, though the sadness came later, quietly, the way it always does when you do the right thing and the right thing still costs you something. Just proud. Of myself. Quietly, genuinely, for the first time in as long as I can remember. Rory looked up from the couch and said, "You know what that was?" I said, "What?" She said, "That was the first day of the rest of your life." Actual cliché, but I mean it completely. And Jane laughed, and then I laughed, and then Rory laughed, and the three of us sat in my living room, drinking tea and laughing at the absolute absurdity and the beauty and the difficulty of being alive and choosing yourself and starting over. That is the chapter. That is what happened last Saturday. I am not going to tell you that closing that door fixed everything. It didn't. The account is still what it is. The bare walls are still mostly bare. The grief is still real, and it will arrive without warning, and it will for a while longer yet. But something is different now. That door was a line, and I am on the right side of it. I want to say something to anyone watching this who has their own door, their own version of a person standing on the other side of it with something symbolic in their hand and a speech prepared and the full weight of your shared history pressed up against the frame. You are allowed to feel the pull and still close the door. You are allowed to still love something and know that going back is not the answer. You are allowed to choose the harder, lonelier, more uncertain path because it's yours, because it leads somewhere he cannot follow, because the life on the other side of that door is the one you are building for yourself, and it is worth more than the comfort of going back to a life that was never fully yours to begin with. Close the door. Jane and Rory, if you're watching this, and you know you are, I love you both more than I know how to say. You stood in that room and you were exactly who I needed you to be. I will not forget it. Come back on Wednesday. We are moving forward now. The rebuild is real, and it is beginning, and I cannot wait to show you what comes next. I'm Nini B. Banks, and I just chose myself.